Yeah. Nope, that's not me. You know. Yes. You forgot so much. There you go. Dar Jr. says there's an echo.
There. Now it's all better. I fixed the audio.
Is it all better?
Yes, it is better.
I'm asking the audience.
See, I told you.
You are an
I told you.
narrator.
He says it's better. I was right.
What are you guys laughing at? What's so funny?
Making assumptions that technology is working the way it's supposed to.
Yeah.
Boy,
my head's huge.
I told you. I mean, in multiple ways now.
To sit way back. Right.
I normally try to remember to put on one of my handful of D&D shirts, but I guess I couldn't be bothered today.
Just got the
generic Star Wars. You know that
my logo's.
I gotta say, I need more companies to send me T-shirts so I can wear them.
Well, you could sign up for that D&D of the month, the D&D T-shirt of the month.
Yeah, no, you didn't hear me. I said they should be sending me shirts so that I will wear them when we record.
They will send you shirts. You just have to pay for them.
I think I have. What D&D shirts do I have? The only D&D shirt that I wear regularly is the Rainbow Ampersand, because that one's for charity. The Kobold Press one that I got was the last time I went to Gen Con. Wolfgang just had that in his bag and gave it to me. Nice. And then I've got the D&D Beyond one. There was a year that D&D Beyond sent out Christmas packages to people, and it included a D&D Beyond shirt. I think it also included, I think that's where I got, that's where I got the little Pop-O-Matic die that sometimes works.
Yep.
You broke
I
it.
did. It sits behind me. Oh yeah, there's that pen is from them. There's some good stuff that came in that. I'll tell you what, the best thing that came in that package was a backup battery. It is, of all the random USB backup batteries that I've bought, the one that I got for free from them is by far the best backup battery that I own. My wife took it to the marathon in Chicago last weekend so she could charge her phone while she was running.
Yeah, I think the D&D Beyond one. Yeah, I've got that sucker. Yeah, it has watts for hours.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. We had a power outage and I used it because I was a light on it too. So it was pretty handy.
Yeah. All right. Well, I did not.
Let's talk about some D&D.
I didn't do my usual prep tonight, but whatever.
The 30 seconds of who's first?
No. I did that prep. I didn't do my jotting down bullet points of what I did in my own game in the last month. So
yeah,
I'll remember as we go. That'll be fine. Where's my recording software? All right, so it's recording now. All right, so we are recording. Welcome to Behind the DM Screen. It is October of 2021. There we go. Is my math right there, Mike? You're making faces at me.
I thought you were saying the day, like it's the October of the 12th.
No.
I'm like,
and it's not that either, but no, it is October of 2021. We are 3 DMs talking about our games, helping each other out. I am Jeff. I am with Mike. Say
hello.
I'm with Sam.
Hello.
So that is all the intro you get. Sam, you can go ahead and start talking, but I'm going to go ahead and put time on the clock while you chat.
Awesome. So, so the last thing that happened in my Rime of the Frostmaiden game was that the group left Lonelywood to go up north to the Sea of Moving Ice, and they stumbled across some trolls that were killing and eating a herd of deer, and they defeated those trolls. These were ice trolls, and they removed the heart of one of the trolls, and one of the PCs ate it because they had heard some cool things about that. And as they were rescuing the herd, the big, enormous sort of king elk came down and thanked the elk tribesmen by giving him a bell. And so the group went back to the sled where the sled dogs were, and Velen Harpel consequently was there and was ecstatic that they had a bell, because she knew that they were going to need that bell in order to get to the to get to the spot where they could get to Oral's island. Okay. And so she told them, it's excellent that you had it. They told the whole story to her about how they got it. And it was a really fun role-playing scene. And then the group, they decided to go forward. They were still going towards the Sea of Moving Ice, and they found the tribe, the wolf tribe that was camping out. And it's the same tribe that they had run into previously, several sessions before, and they had made friends with the tribe. And the tribe was basically seceding from the rest of the wolf tribe. And the story they told, the reason they said they were doing that is because the chief of the wolf tribe was convinced that he was a chosen of Oral, and he was becoming very aggressive and trying to sort of keep everybody under his thumb. And anyone who died, he was starting to sort of support the idea of cannibalism. And so finally this group decided to sort of separate from them. And so they met this group and the temporary chief of that group and their shaman, and they had a little boy. The chief had a little boy who was like 9. They had other kids too, but the little boy was 9, and he was strangely able to withstand the cold. And so the party got to talking to him and found out that he also occasionally sees a very large tiger following the group around. And usually he tells the shaman, because they've figured out that seeing that tiger, when the kid sees the tiger, that means there's going to be an attack, basically, because they're being hunted by the wolf tribe and the tiger tribe, which is the mortal enemy of the wolf tribe. And so, of course, the party puts 2 and 2 together and realizes that tiger, that's not just a figment of the kid's imagination. That's actually a saber-toothed tiger that the kid is seeing. And who knows how the kid is seeing it and nobody else is seeing it, but the kid is seeing it, and that is Bjornhild's tiger, her pet tiger, how she's keeping an eye on this wolf tribe. And then they realize, oh, well, the kid is resistant to cold because he was born on midwinter. He himself might be a chosen of Oral in some respect. So now they're thinking, crap, we have to protect this kid. So they help the wolf tribe get away from the area that they were at. This was the previous meeting, okay? They helped the wolf tribe get away, and they tried to distract anybody that was following them and all of that. So they helped the wolf tribe once before, and they made friends with them. Well, now they're coming upon a tribal setup, a camp setup, and it looks like the same wolf tribe, except there are bloodstains everywhere. There's a bunch of tents that are set up, and the tents themselves have blood all over them. There's blood all in the snow. There's no animals to be found. All of the sleds have been broken up. There's a lot of carnage around. There's a lot of fires that have been put out. And so they go looking around, and they find that the only person alive in this camp is the little boy. And as they are trying to figure out from this little boy what happened and figure out everything that went on, they, of course, get attacked by the actual tiger tribe. So they have this big battle, and they the chief of the tiger tribe, Bjornhild, Solveig's daughter, she's actually, so one of my PCs has the secret that he is actually a child of Bjornhild, who she thinks she's a chosen, so she put this child on basically a piece of ice and pushed it out into the Sea of Moving Ice, hoping that it would get killed, and so she wouldn't have to worry about it, because she wants to be the only person of her bloodline who is the chosen, right? So any child that she has either threatens that, or she's unsure of its paternity, or there's all these weird story things. Well, this particular PC is a tiefling, and he's a Levistus tiefling. And so what I did was I had him realize through all these discussions and things happening throughout the game that the rumors are that Bjornhild, the way that she keeps getting pregnant, and the reason why she keeps sending off the children onto icebergs, is that actually Levistus is the father. And so so that sort of gets revealed in the middle of this whole thing, and of course he's like, "Oh my God, Sam, I hate you. You're a bastard," and that's okay, because it was a lot of fun. And
weren't you like super against having Asmodeus in your campaign?
I was, and Levistus
and
isn't
like,
really.
Well, Levistus is totally different.
Right, but Levistus isn't in my campaign. But this PC
he's
wanted a
siring
Levistus tiefling.
Well,
he wanted a Levistus tiefling.
And Levistus is more thematically appropriate anyway, what with the ice and all that.
Yeah.
And I mean, he does have things that he does in the campaign. It's just that my party didn't happen to interact or intersect with any of those. If they had, I would have let that be it in terms of Levistus being in it. But since they didn't do any of those things, and now all of a sudden this was just too good of an opportunity. Okay, it was too good of an opportunity.
At least it's got this nice specific tie to one of the characters, right? So you're not just throwing Asmodeus in there for no reason. It's like Levistus is there because the character is tied to Levistus.
And if the character,
I'm just giving you crap because it's like you're so against Asmodeus, and here's Levistus.
No, I know, and I'm against Levistus too. But I let my players make whatever PC they want.
Sure.
So if he hadn't been a Levistus tiefling, that would have never been uttered as a thing, right? It just would have not been part of it. Right? So, but it was really funny because he was like, "Oh my God, that means I might be the son of Levistus." Oh Jesus, this is horrible. It's horrible. Because he had convinced himself that even though he was the child of Bjornhild, he was better than that, right?
Right.
Except now, not only is he the child of Bjornhild, he's also the child of
better than Levistus.
Yeah, well, of course. So anyway, so then they go, and so then they have to figure out, okay, what are we going to do with this kid? So at the beginning of the next session, they figure out, okay, we got to send this kid back to... So they start talking about where they're going, and they realize if they go to Aural's house and they take the kid, it might seem like they are bringing a gift for Aural, bringing one of her chosen children. And they don't want anything bad to happen to the kid, so they decided not to do that. So they sent Velen back to Lonelywood with the kid and gave her instructions how to find the speaker of Lonelywood.
Velen is super trustworthy.
Well, so far she hasn't done anything against them, right?
She's the first one. Handing a small child that could be the son of Levistus over to the Arcane Brotherhood. How could that go wrong?
Well, I mean, so they're kind of they have so that's going to come back to bite them. But anyway, so they send her with the kid to go back to Speaker Huddle's house because they had a really good relationship with Speaker Huddle and her 9 children, and so they want the kid to stay there. And they're like, yeah, okay, well, we're going to start heading to the Sea of Moving Ice. Catch up to us, right? There's only one of you who can catch up to us. So they spend the night. They have really, really horrible dreams. I give them all premonition dreams, and then I have them roll con checks. And if they fail the con check, if they already had a level of exhaustion, they now have another one.
Oh.
And if they didn't have a level of exhaustion, they get one. All of them except I think half of them failed. Oh. Okay, but then they moved, and then they were going to get another chance to sleep and everything. So they get over to the coast, and they find the place where they know they're supposed to hang the bell to get Angajuk to come and take them. They don't know what's going to come and take them, but they know that that's where they have to hang the bell and ring it and all that. And so they do all that, Angajuk comes and gets them, puts them on the boat. They're fascinated by the giant bubble that forms, and then Angajuk takes them on a 3-day tour and tells them. And all I did was mention a few things that are mentioned in the book, like you go see basically the undersea Atlantis, and you get a whole tour of it. And I tell them Angajuk's doing it like a Star Tours, right? Like, and this is where the king of Atlantis lived, and this is the house of the whatever, right? And then they see like an old sunken giant castle and everything. And all these things, every single one of my players was like, ooh, we want to go look at that. Ooh, we want to go look at that. Ooh,
yeah, sure.
None of that's in the book, right? So, And I was like, nope, you're still going. He knows where he's going. So
Saltmarsh might have some stuff for that.
Yeah. So they get to the island of Solstice, and they get onto the island, and they're trying to go towards the center of the island. They completely... Well, so also I forgot to say, they were debating about whether to wait for Velen before they rang the bell, because they wanted to wait for her, because she's the one who said, we got to go there and steal the Codicil of White. But they decided anyway to leave without her. They quit waiting for her. They waited like a half a day, and then they waited long enough for her to catch up, and then another half day beyond that. And they decided, okay, we're not going to go back to Lonely Wood. We're going to just go forward. So they decide not to go with her. They get to Solstice, and they start seeing different things on the island that are very similar to what their bad dreams were. And they travel for several hours, and they finally get to where they're looking at Castle Grimskull, right? The actual, it's basically Castle Grayskull, but it's made out of ice, and it's looks like an old
giant size
skull. Yeah. And so I showed them the image from the book, which is absolutely awesome. It's a really great piece of art where there's all these steps leading up to it. And that's where we ended that session. And the players now are completely okay. So one of them has two levels of exhaustion. 3 of them have 1 level of exhaustion, and one of them has no levels of exhaustion. And so they're really, really bad off. They are really bad off because, of course, on the island, you really don't ever get any rest. I mean, even if they camp, they're not really going to get rest. So basically their choice is, in the bad condition that they're in, they have to go into Aural's house and rob her of the Codicil of White. And if they wait until dark, I hope none of them are listening to this, if they wait until dark, they can do it, because if they wait till dark, she'll be out casting her spell. Right? If they wait till midnight. If they don't wait till midnight and they just walk up to the door and go in, she's going to be in there, and they're going to have to fight her. And 2 of them have 2 levels of exhaustion, and 3 of them have 1 level. So, one of them has 2 levels, and 3 of them have 1 level, and 1 of them has none. So there's only 1 of them that's even halfway decent in terms of being able to do anything. And they're level 6. So they are going to end up fighting her, and it's going to go bad for them. It's going to go real bad. They're going to have to make a decision. If they wait, they can just sneak in and they'll be able to steal the Codicil, and it'll be no problem. They might have a problem with the giant that's in there, right? But then they can get in, and they can actually talk to that guy, because one of my PCs actually is a Genasi with a giant history, so has giant blood in her, so she could actually talk to that guy and they wouldn't have to fight him, and they could sneak in and I would let them do it, right? They don't have to fight her. But if they don't wait, they're going to have to fight her.
What are your plans for the tests?
They're not doing them. I hate those.
I mean, right, so how are they are you replacing with anything, or they can walk right up to the door of the Codicil?
They have to get past that giant, and so that's going to be
the one that's in that first door.
He's
dude.
right there, and he has.
If you get past him, you get to the.
Yep.
Gotcha.
If they get past him, they can go in. I'm gonna give them lots of little vignettes, they're gonna see all the different kinds of stuff that that Aural has in there. They're gonna see some cultists and different things, but they won't have to fight anything. And there's no, because they already did 2 of those tests, but as part of the previous.
Yeah. Right.
Right. So, because those tests are dumb. And because the thing is, if they fail those tests, a stupid druid comes and opens the door for them anyway. So that's stupid. It's not even worth it. So I played the test.
We talked all about that.
If you can't fail forward, then why are you even doing it?
So right. So I'll just let them go in, because they're going to have a hard enough time getting off the island, right? So they can steal the Codex, no problem. right? The Codicil of White. But getting out and going back and finding Angajuk and getting him to come where they are, and they also are supposed to find Nas Lantamir to get the Professor Orb, which they don't even know anything about. They don't know how to find that. So for them, their problem is going to be the actual island and not just Oral's abode, unless they go in there when she's in there. If they wait for her to fly away,
they'll be
fine.
What level the adventure has them going to the island? Is it 6th level? 7?
7. Like 7 to 8. Yeah.
I don't know. It seems low level to be walking into the abode of a god.
Especially when you're
and that's
hampered with exhaustion.
Right. That was one of Mike's issues with it, right? Is that why should it be possible to fight a goddess at level 7, right? Like, that's stupid to have it that way. And that was one of his, right? For me, though, it's like, that's really just her manifestation on this plane. It's not really, they're not.
Yeah, sure, but even if it's just a manifestation, it's dumb that you should be able to kill her.
Yeah, right. Fizban's Treasury of Dragons is coming out in like 3 weeks, and it has an aspect of Tiamat in it. I'm betting it's not level 7.
No, and the thing is, like,
I'm betting it's like CR28.
Right, but see, also the thing is, though, like, she's not a pushover, right? And I think that it's not true to say that level 7 characters could walk all over here. I think the problem is that she has 3 forms, and she's hard to run that way. So she's like 3 CR11 creatures all at the same time. And if you play it so that she actually gets her lair actions, and you've played it tough on them while they're on the island, like I have, I mean,
forgot about lair
look,
actions,
nobody wants to go into that thing with 2 levels of exhaustion, no matter what level they are, right?
No.
So
I can't even imagine what kind of DM would put that in.
Well, I look forward to a couple chapters here, because then you'll be getting to Yithrin, which is the only part of that adventure that I've run. So
yeah. Well, and that's part of why I'm just going to let them. Basically, they can walk in and get the codex with no problem, right? They really can if they time it right and if they play it right. And knowing my players, if they stop and think for a second, they will. But they might just desire to run in and run out, and then they'll have a problem. But if they actually plan it, they'll be able to do it no problem. Because I want to get them to Yithrin, and I want to get them to the caverns, right? And because that's connected to the Underdark, and that brings my Torog storyline back, right? And so I want to get. I don't care if they fight Oral right now. I think they're scared enough of her.
I'm curious, and tell me if I
win.
should save this for my my time. But although your time's already over, so what does it matter? I'm curious. Right, I'm curious how you deal with random encounters in the adventure. And clearly the environment matters, but do you play with random encounters? Are they running into those things to slow them down at all, or wear down their resources?
Yeah, so actually the elk herd thing sprang from a random encounter, or the troll thing sprang from a random encounter. That was a random encounter. I decided that as they were traveling out to try to get to the Sea of Moving Ice, that they would run into a couple of random encounters, right? And I rolled, and it came up like ice trolls. So I went and looked at what the ice trolls are doing, and I thought, oh, that's good. I wanted those in the adventure anyway because I think they're really cool, right? And so
ice trolls are badass.
Right, they're really cool. And so I wanted them to have this really sort of interesting fight with a lot of downed trees, but I also wanted there to be a reason to fight them. So just putting the trolls there, the party probably just would have been like, nope, and left, right? Because they don't care. If they're not doing anything disturbing or whatever, they could just leave. So what I did was I put them, right, attacking a herd of elk, which of course is going to get my elk tribesman, who has been actually one of his main focuses in the game was to be looking for elk and because all of their food was gone. That was why he actually joined the party, was because he was sent out from his clan who's all starving to death because their food sources run away to find out where the food source went or why. And so this is part of that. And so he helped rescue that. So that random encounter became something I could directly connect to the party. So they probably didn't feel like it was a random encounter because I added enough to it.
I'm finding more and more. I've always been
It's not random.
And I've long been kind of blah on random encounters anyway, and that feeling has only intensified, I guess, with time, right?
Wow.
Like, see, like, so I'm, like, I played through Out of the Abyss. Yeah, Out of the Abyss, right? And it's like, well, you got to do something because it's the Underdark and it needs to feel dangerous, right? Same thing with Curse of Strahd. Like, you got to do something because if you can just wander around Barovia without any trouble, then what's the point? Then it's not scary anymore. But at the same time, like, I find most of the time it's just a drag. It slows the story down unnecessarily. Those encounters that I can easily figure out how to make it part of the story, like that's what I found. A lot of the there's been a lot of the more recent adventures. A lot of the random encounters aren't even like combat encounters. It's just, here's a weird thing that you run into.
Right.
My favorite random encounter in Barovia was you're walking down the road and a random trinket from the trinket table is just there in the middle of the road. Right? And it was a pipe. Right. And the pipe blows smokes.
It's still smoking.
Right. And it blows smoke in the shape of like skulls or something. Right. And one of the characters had established that he smoked a pipe. And he had given it up in the Margrave as a sacrifice of a personal item or whatever on the way to Barovia. Right. So that was interesting. But like when I ran Descent into Avernus with my kids, like they're in an Infernal War Machine, and it's like, well, there's a random encounter, but they're like, yeah, but we're on our way to something. We just go around it and we're faster than everything, So,
right, yeah. So
I think it gets. Well, let's him go.
So I was just going to say, so the way that I deal with that is, because I love random encounters from way back, right? Like I'm old school in that way. But the thing is that you're right about if a random encounter just sort of falls in your lap and it's just a random, like, oh, let's fight 6 goblins. Right. Well, that's boring as hell and it doesn't matter, right? So that's
that's what made me think of it. Because you're talking about Rime, and I'm playing Yithrin right now, and there's a bunch of random encounters of you run into Nothics, and it kind of fills in some flavor, but it's not a challenge at that level because Nothics are like 3rd level.
So here's. Right. So here's what I would do if I was actually planning it. Like when my people are going to go into Yithrin, I'm going to have a set of random encounters that I'm going to make my own table, right? And part of it will be sort of taken from those ideas, right, that are in the book. And the thing is, though, I'm going to specialize those, right? I'm going to modify them so that they provide some information or something of interest or something that connects to one of the PC's backgrounds or might connect, right? Like you never know, right? And so that's sort of what I do. And then I don't structure them so that they have to meet everyone. It really is a random encounter. Some of them they're never going to meet, and some of them they will, right? I really will roll on it. And then the other thing is if they're in a situation where they can just simply go around it, either number one, you got to be okay with that, or number two, the thing has to be an obstacle enough that they can't just go around it, and that's for you.
Or enticing enough.
Right.
Yeah, tailor that.
Doesn't have to just be an obstacle. It's something they want.
Yeah, exactly. right. Yeah, exactly. And so you tailor that to like everything I've done in Rime, and part of the reason why I think it's gone so well is I tailor every single thing to the PCs. Like 5th edition really asks
I get frustrated enough with it because there's so many encounters that are bland, and I don't have the mental fortitude to prep a session and also on the fly really make that encounter what I want it to be. Like
well, that's why I say not on the fly, right? You got to.
Well, and that's what I did with Curse of Strahd. Is I took all their random encounters and I made up some of my own, incorporating some things from Kobold Press's things, so I could have weird undead creatures or horrific creatures that they aren't expecting. And it did some of that, and that worked pretty well. But and honestly, like I'm running Yithrin, and I haven't even looked at the random encounter table. It's just not something I'm interested in doing with them at that point. Yeah, I have looked at it, but that's why I say it's like a bunch of Nothics, which tells the story of Yithrin a little bit, but it's not a meaningful challenge. My players are 15th level at this point, and I'm not really increasing the difficulty of Yithrin.
Right, but the thing is, but to make it a meaningful challenge, it's not that they have to fight him. It's that those Nothics could have information they need to complete their tasks, and they might have to find that out. They're, the Nothics aren't going to be holding a sign, right? So you either choose to work that in or not, but you got to think about it beforehand. That's the thing.
Yeah, and so there's, I have lots of thoughts about random encounters. So, but one of them is like, if there's two Nothics wandering around, it doesn't matter that they're significantly less than the characters. So the characters hit them and they're dead, right? But it's still flavor of the area, right? It still shows like there used to be Netherese wizards hanging around in Ythryn, and they've all turned into Nothics now. So, that's even if they either avoid them, even if it's just background scenery. Right.
And I've introduced the Nothics. Like, there's the one encounter. There's the one encounter with them in the museum, and there's enough of them in the background. They've run into them or seen them or are aware of them enough, and they know what Nothics are because they run into them. They're also in Tomb of Annihilation and several other adventures they play. They keep popping up. Right. It's like hags. Wizards really likes hags and Nothics these days, because they're in everything. So like they're aware of it, and I don't need the random encounter to.
Right, but that's what makes Cold Light Walkers so great, right? Because those are so thematic to
totally unique.
Rime of the Frost Maiden, right? And so every chance I get, I just have them see some of those damn things. They had one fight with them, and it scared them and damaged them so bad they avoid them at all costs.
Yeah,
and I also started having, anytime they show up, the Cold Light Walker will like look up to the sky and highlight where Auril is flying over, and like the light shines on the belly of the white rock, and it like creates this scene of like almost a beacon, right? And the players are all like, "Oh crap, get the hell away from here! This is horrible," And so they don't even have to fight him. It's just thematically showing how, there's really dangerous, weird stuff out there, and that's okay for it to be something that they kind of go around in that way. But if you have information you need that party to have, random encounters are a great way to provide it. It just has to be actually thought about, not just, I rolled on a table and I rolled, 5 orcs, and there's a note in one of their pockets and it says this. Like, that's not connected.
Part of me wants to, what I really want to do, I think, is...
That's a perfectly fine random encounter as far as I'm concerned. Orc with a note in a pocket.
Going off the cuff is my point. But if you had this random encounter table and you knew there were 5 orcs on it, you could do something more than there's a note in their pocket.
I think you did one idea that I run and I use a lot, which I really love, which is rolling twice and having them mash together, right? So have your ice trolls that are fighting your herd of elk, right? I introduced Avarice that way, right? When my characters were going through, they went to an interesting. The way I treat random encounters is they run into some interesting monument between the two locations that they're headed to, and there's usually some kind of encounter at that monument. And most of the time, they can see it ahead of time and decide if they want to engage with it or not. And in this case, they saw Avarice fighting off a bunch of crag cats, right? And crag cats have weird spell things that they do, and they were watching the crag cats reflect spells that she was throwing at them. And then they got involved, and it was really interesting, and it was a great way to introduce the character. It had an interesting place. There were lots of secrets exposed, lots of things that they discovered. So it was a mix of all 3 pillars, right? It was a role play encounter, it was an exploration encounter, and it was a combat encounter in one scene. So, and it was completely, I think I knew Avarice was going to be there, but I didn't know what she was going to be fighting, and lo and behold, it turned into crag cats.
I'm just finding a lot of times. The random encounter, the random nature of random encounters, the stopping what you're doing, stopping the role play so I can roll some dice to see if something happens, whatever. It breaks the narrative, and honestly, most of the time it's unnecessary. And those times where it does add something, I kind of find I would rather plan those encounters. Maybe I'll look at the random encounter table and be like, these are the cool ones. I'm going to have some of these happen at random times. I just need to keep them in my back pocket and have them ready to go. And that's a system that works better for me.
Yeah, I roll before. I roll during prep, right? I don't roll during the game. Sometimes I'll do one, sometimes I'll do the other. But most of the time I roll during prep, and I'm using
and
it
there's
to
some great
spark
resources.
my imagination. And I look and go, that's a really cool idea. Because I'm not going to go through 20 different monsters to figure it out.
Yeah, that's the issue, is that it breaks in the narrative. I need to do it ahead of time. But I also it's one of those situations like having the players roll for a monster's recharge, where when I'm doing it at the table, I'll have them roll the d20, and I don't tell them what it's for, and then they get to determine whether there's an encounter or not. But I also found... The DM's Guild Adepts have been putting out products like there's Encounters of Waterdeep, Encounters of Avernus, or whatever it is, right? And some are better than others, but they tend to have more interesting random encounters than what's in the books. Was it Arcadia? Yep. Arcadia, one of their magazines recently had a selection of, 4 or 5 random encounters that become little story seeds or interesting things that you could, there are resources out there to make random encounters better. But I was thinking earlier, like, I need to just stop determining the random encounters at the table. I'm just going to make a big giant table of them ahead of time, and then I can plan them.
I think that. Right. Yeah, I think the ones that are in Frostmaiden are not bad. Like, they've got good descriptions of what kinds of things are going on. They're not all combat. Yeah, the giant mammoth. The Frostmaiden.
Remember, I'm not actually running Frostmaiden. I'm just in Ythryn.
It was awesome.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, some are better than others, and the Frostmaiden ones are pretty good.
So, the thing is, the thing about 5th edition is, and the way especially that the adventures are written is mostly they're written assuming that everybody's using milestones by now. Like, I know in the early days of 5e, they kind of had XP, and people still do run XP, but I know most people probably run milestone because that's kind of the way 5th edition is written. And when you run milestone leveling, like random encounters and wandering monsters, that's an unnecessary mechanic, right? Like in the olden days, right, in when I was playing basic D&D or 1st edition, you need random encounters in there sometimes, either because you need to be able to capture somebody's gold so you can get some XP, or you actually need to find information and infiltrate something, and having random encounters gives you the
You're
ability
right, those editions
those
were crap, I agree.
But in 5th edition, I didn't say that. 5th edition isn't written like that, right? 5th edition is written so that if you're going to do random encounters, it's better to just plan them out and put some interesting ideas, and you don't necessarily roll at the table because you're not putting that encounter in there because they need the XP. You're putting that encounter in there to make it a more interesting game and to give them some extra information, or to drain some of their resources if that's what you want to do, not because they need XP. And since you're only draining resources, you can make any kind of encounter.
I was pleasantly surprised. I started the timer a while ago because my time is next anyway, so we just flowed right into it. We're going to call it my time now. Because of the nature of how I'm running Ythryn, like, I'm not running Rime, so a lot of the storylines don't matter as much anyway. But I found it interesting because I haven't been using any of the random encounters. I've had little vignettes, like they're aware that there's Nothics running around, and there's always movement in the corner of your eye or in the shadows, and so and they've run into enough Nothics to get what's going on. And I'm not, the whole Arcane Brotherhood and Auril showing up in the city, that's just not part of the storyline. So that doesn't happen. And as a result, it turns out that you can run around the city of Ythryn with actually very few combat encounters. Like, we went, I think, 2 sessions in a row with 1 encounter per session. And one of those was like a handful of Nothics, and they're, 14th, 15th level characters, so they rolled right over them. And I was actually pleased that they threw some decently high level spells at it, so at least I got to expend some resources. But, like, at the same time, like, we got through the one session, like, 2 weeks ago it was, where the only encounter was a handful of Nothics at the end, right? And yet they got to the end of it, it's like, there was no, even my min-maxer who really likes the strategic part of D&D is like, I was worried, he didn't get to do his thing, right? He's like, yeah, but, like, it was a really fun session, and we did a lot of weird things, and there were puzzles to solve, and there were riddles to figure out, or what, there was thinking, and there was lore, and there they went into the museum, and you run into the body of the Farim, which is some relatively deep Forgotten Realms lore, and so I got to flex my Forgotten Realms knowledge a little bit, and they had a
there's a Farim stat block now in the Minsc and Boo guide that just came out on the DM's Guild includes a Farim. Yeah.
They had a great time with it, right? They've gone through at this point. It's amazing how when they first got into Ythryn, I had it in my head, well, they'll probably work their way through the city in about 2 sessions, 2 5-hour, 6-hour sessions, right? That's good enough to get through the entire city and explore all the towers and whatever. No, it was 4 or 5 sessions, I think, of exploring the city. They wanted to go to every location. They wanted to look into every little nook. The only thing they weren't interested in is playing the game of Chain Lightning, the sports arena at the one spot that like they identified that early, figured out in the library what it was. Is, oh, okay, I get it. No, we're not going there. That's no reason, right? But like even like the orchestra, they went in and did that because the bard was like, this is really exciting, and she had the right roles, and so I could identify the song and conducted the ghost orchestra, and there was just all kinds of like fun. And like there's when you go into the Tower of Illusion, it's surrounded in this mist, this fog, and when you go in, you make a save against an 8th level phantasmal killer spell. Which was super fun because I had because Phantasmal Killer, you see something that's horrible and frightening and it causes all the psychic damage to you. Which in this case, because it's 8th level, it was like 50 some points of psychic damage. It was nothing, right? But I had them be like, okay, you walk in, what horrible thing do you see? And they would tell me some horrible thing they see, and then for every single one of them, I found some way to say, yes, it's that, and then one up it and make it even worse. Like, yeah, you do see all of your friends and family around you dead, and the bad guys have won, and it turns out you look down and you see that your hands are covered in blood and you're the one who killed them, So every single time one of them would, they'd say, this is my biggest fear. This is the thing that is affecting me. And then I would find some way to push it even further and one up it. And they're like, oh, Jeff, you did it, So that was super fun, right? So they went through all the towers. They've completed all of the tasks. There's all like you find the one wizard that's got like this crown that sucked all of her memories out, and they knew exactly where to take it to destroy it, and they did. Every single part of Ythryn has been super fun, even if a little bit combat light for as big and scary as it's supposed to be. I was rather pleased they finally figured out 2 sessions ago they got all the pieces of the riddle. I even really enjoyed because in the Tower of Illusion, there's a very sort of Gygaxian thing, right? In every other tower, there's part of the riddle they need to solve, sort of, or the ritual or whatever, inscribed in the wall in Draconic. And we only have one player whose character speaks Draconic, so this one character has to do all the translating for everybody. And one up, and just like all the others, like there it is, in Draconic, there's the piece that you need for the ritual. And then they start like, okay, well, we search the room, we do what we do, let's go ahead and head out. And then that one player who speaks Draconic is like, wait a minute, this is the Tower of Illusion, right? And it's very Gygaxian, because that's the actual trick, is that the inscription isn't really what it says. It's an illusion of the inscription on top of it, which feels exactly like a Gygax old school module. Like, there is one specific thing you need to do, and you've just got to be super clever and figure it out. Or else you just miss it, and then you're hosed, right? And yet, like, I was a little worried that you wouldn't figure it out, and then he did, and that was super rewarding. Like, that was, because he figured out the trick without any clues, without any way, hints that there was something going on there, other than, we are in the Tower of Illusion, maybe we should take another look at this thing, or cast a spell magic on it just in case. And it turned out they were, there is a clue, because when you walk out with the wrong inscription, the voice of the high illusionist like laughs at you. That's the only clue you get, though, as written. But they didn't even need that. They figured out before they walked out, and I was rather impressed that they had pulled that off. And so then they last session they got into the spire. At first they were hoping, oh well, we'll go through the ritual and the force field goes down and we can all just sort of wander around inside the force field or inside the spire or whatever. And then they figured out that no, we all have to do it. And it has that fun role-playing moment of part of the ritual is you have to reveal a secret about yourself aloud for everybody to hear. And then the next step is, and now you need to coax a secret from somebody else. And so we got 2 like character secrets from every single character and some of them were like big secrets that they'd been keeping through the entire campaign. Like one of the characters has a different name that only one other character knows about, and she has been keeping a secret the entire campaign, and then revealed it, in order to get it into this force field. And And then others were like, oh, well, I kind of had a crush on this redheaded girl when I was 8. That was, I never told anybody about that, so... but, when you're going to reveal that many secrets, plus it was like the session after we did the Phantasmal Killer thing, like there was all kinds of like inner psychological things going on. I hate to give Mike credit, but I think I think it was last time we chatted, I was telling you it's been like a month and a half since we played. How do I sort of get him hooked back into it? And you suggested start with something big happening, right? And so I had the entire city sort of shift off of its kilter because the dragon the two-headed dragon that they're hunting, that is the thing I added that wasn't in Ythryn originally, came flying out from under it. It had been digging around under the city, and as it flew out, it caused the whole city to shift, and that kind of freaked him out just enough to get him. Oh yeah, that's what we're doing, right? And then they get. I also had a lot of fun. So you go into the spire. And I don't remember how much you remember from either running it or reading it, but you go into the spire and there's a ballroom, and it's suddenly there's all these people and they're dancing and they're having fun and everything is going well and it's light and it's warm and there's food being passed around and whatever, right? And of course it's all an illusion, and there's 3 brains in a jar like in the ceiling that are creating this illusion. My players went and they danced with the other people at the ball, and they talked to them, and they went off and explored the other rooms, and they took the abracadabras box that provides all the food, and at no point in time did they ever figure out the illusion. They were just like, well, that's weird, and then they just moved on. So there's still this ballroom back there with a ball going on. Then they get into this room where there's a trap door, a secret door on the ceiling, and they figured out they figured out that was there, but they couldn't for the life of them figure out how to open it. It's in the ceiling, and it takes a really high strength check to open and whatever. Like a couple of them dimension door through it to the other side. So you're on the other side of this trap door, but you're standing on the door that everybody else is trying to open, and it's just a vertical shaft of like 50 feet going up. And so they're like, well, what do we do now? There's no latch. There's no way to open it. We thought we'd pop over here and open it from the other side. That's not how that works, right? They just tried, and eventually I think they blew through inspiration and various blessings or guidance and all kinds of stuff to eventually get to the strength they needed to get it pried open. And normally I've been bad about, but been trying to get better at like not revealing the things that they didn't discover. But that one was too good because they're like, how is somebody supposed to open that? I'm like, oh, well, all you need to do is knock. Like that's literally all it is to open that trap door. Is you just got to knock on it. But they spent 20 minutes trying every trick that they could come up with to get enough strength or magically get past it or whatever. And so that was the last session. They finally got through the trap door. They got to the top, and the top opens up. There's just a dome of frost surrounding you, and on the other side of these animated black blades that are like tears in reality sort of thing. But they don't realize yet that the Dome of Frost is because there's a Wall of Force dome there that separates you from it. But that's where I left off. I described that room. You came out, Dome of Frost, big black blades that want to kill you, and we'll deal with that next week. So, right.
It's a good start for next time. What are, if you have, so I haven't even, I've read it. I guess I've read more of Caves of Hunger.
See, I completely skipped
the Caves of Hunger, so I haven't really. Yeah, so I'm gonna run both. What 3 tips would you offer somebody who's going to run Ythryn, based on what's in the book?
I'm certain there are good tips about when and how to introduce the Arcane Brotherhood and Auril to the story. I imagine there's good tips on that, but since I'm not using that, I don't have practical advice on that. I think the first thing that comes to my mind is, like is oftentimes true, be more free with the lore and the mystery than you think you need to be, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, I think it is, but like,
players aren't understanding half of what you're giving them. So you should always go.
And when you're in Ythryn, like you're in this ancient flying Netherese city, and that is a part of Forgotten Realms lore that does not play anywhere else in my campaign, or really anywhere else in Realm of the Frostmaiden. Like the Netherese are not a major theme throughout it, and so you can't expect that they've gone through several levels of like learning about Netheril and what these cities were like, and who these people are, and all of that, what happened to them, and all of that. And so I think I one of the things that they've really enjoyed is learning about, you know, ancient Netheril and their flying cities and the fall of the Netherese and how this city actually fell before the Netherese. And they've learned a little bit more about Iriel Larthus, who's the demi-lich who once ruled the city, and they know, you know, and so there's all of that, right? I think the other thing, I don't know, I think what's working well for me as well is there's big touchstone areas where big things can happen in the adventure, and there's not much to stop you, like the obelisk. You know, you can show up to the obelisk, you can activate the obelisk, you can rewrite all of the world, but there's no like challenge to get through to get there, to get to, you know, to do the thing, right? The same thing with the Mythalar, which is not actually very far away. At most, a tomb tapper shows up, you know, and so I'm having, when they after they get the staff and they go to the obelisk because they know that that's what they need to activate the obelisk, and that's what the dragon wants, right? The dragon is basically holding people hostage in order to force them to go through and get the staff for him so it can use the obelisk, because I've changed it so that it can be used to kill a god as well, which is what the Dark Powers want to do. They want to kill the gods and replace them, and so that's where I'm going to have the big dragon fight. They're going to finally make it to the obelisk with the staff, and then after having fought Iriel Larthus, and then the dragon shows up, and I think that's it's a big climactic moment. It seems strange to have the potential of, hey, now we have a flying city, or hey, spoilers for folks in the chat, I suppose, or hey, we've reset the entire timeline of the Forgotten Realms. Like, that feels like a strange thing to put in an epilogue. It's
yeah, I totally want to do it though. Like, I want that. Yeah.
Oh, I don't mind it being the last scene, but I want them to have to like overcome some sort of challenge to do it.
Yes. I don't know. About. Yeah, I think I want to put a choice in front of them. I don't want them. I want them to know that something really big and monumental could happen. And
I also, because I have players in my game who are big Critical Role fans. So I made it, as I was unveiling all this lore about things and even about the obelisk and what it is and what it does, I also made it clear that this and all of the other obelisks are artifacts created by Vecna, because that's a name and a character they know, even though it's not a Forgotten Realms entity. Powerful magic users, turns out, travel the planes and can do things all over the place, right? And so that was fun as well. They got to enjoy that. Other than that, I think just really enjoy the weird creepiness of the locations. I think they're done really well, and the whole thing has been super fun. And let them sort of make assumptions about things, even if they're like, they did the Weightless Wonder, the Hall of Weightless Wonder, or whatever it is, where you like float and can meditate, and it creates a projected image of you that you can like run around the city and do whatever you want as this projected image while your body meditates and floats around. One of the characters who's a tiefling, and part of her story is that she used to run around and capture or recover souls for Dispater, right? And so she's all about like souls and that kind of stuff. So when they like all of their bodies, when everybody else in the party meditated except for her, and all of their projected images appeared, and their consciousness was in the projected image, she's like, oh crap, this thing just separated your soul from the body. Like, go back now. We're not doing like, and I'm like, well, that's not what this is. And I could probably like have somebody make an Arcana check and figure that out. But no, like let them own that this is a weird and it's a creepy place, and souls being separated from bodies totally feels like the exact kind of horror that you should be creating for yourself that I don't even have to make up, right? And that came off really well, you know. The Tower of Necromancy with the like 200 crawling claws running around is a weird, creepy scene that you can do all kinds of strange things with. And like I said, very little of the things. There's a handful. There's some Nothics, and there's the thing that comes up out of the well, and there's the Slod.
Yep.
But until you get to the Spire, a lot of the encounters don't have to be combat encounters. Like when they encountered the hags hiding inside the little pocket dimension in one of the towers, like that ended up being just a role playing encounter. And I think every single one of them that went in willingly gave up a memory in order to be allowed out. That was the price the hags offered, which is weird. I was a little surprised that they even bartered with the hags, because at this point, because WotC puts hags in everything, they've killed like 17 hags now. Like these hags are not a threat to them.
Yeah, there's too many hags. I'm probably not dropping them in.
Right. Well, and even a lot of the hags I changed with Kobold Press hag stat blocks, or changed them up a little bit so they were less predictable. But there's been a lot of covens of hags these days, and they show up in everything. And they've killed 4 hags in Barovia and 3 hags in the tomb. They've met a lot of hags, and they know at this point they've gained multiple levels since they last ran into a hag. These hags aren't a challenge for them, but still they bargain with them. They're like, we got no problem with them. So they want a memory. One of the players happened to have been absent, missed the previous session. So when I asked him, well, what memory do you give up? And he's like, well, I give up the memory of everything that happened last session since I wasn't here anyway. Like that, very clever, yeah. So, one of the players actually wanted to make a trade with him. They had like some potions or whatever, right? And so he's like, I'll give you a memory for one of those. I know. I'll give you a memory for one of those potions. And a memory to get out. So I'm going to give you 2 memories. And I'm like, okay, so what memory are you giving up for the potion? There's that memory. And what memory are you giving up to get out now? I give up the memory of making the first deal. So now he thinks he only made 1 deal and lost 1 memory, but he actually... so this potion just randomly showed up, and he doesn't know why, because he doesn't remember the deal. Okay, yes, my time is well over. Even as we went into Sam's time with it earlier. I do want to remind people, if you want to support the show, go to patreon.com/The Tome Show and become a supporter there. And I know, we all know that nobody needs to be giving more money to Critical Role. They're doing fine. So come help the little dogs like us, right? Support folks like us, and you can do both.
You can go help Critical Role too.
They
deserve what they're getting.
Very good work. Okay, Mike. There's only 5 minutes left for you, so go ahead.
Yeah. All right. I'll do my normal allocation of time then. So it's interesting. Sam and I are actually at very similar spots. One difference is I've been running Frostmaiden for 2 groups now. And one group has gone all the way through and received the Codicil of the White, and now they're on the way to the Caves of Hunger. On their way back, they found out that the Chardalon dragon had attacked 10 towns, and they had to race in there and fight it. So their whole last session was them running to town. They met Valen Harpel and her undead dire wolf sleds that could take them to the town very, very quickly. They got there, they faced the Chardalon dragon, they defeated it, and then they faced some of their allies, or a bunch of NPC stuff, interesting NPC stuff that happened. But my other group, they took the hint that they should go to Sunblight Fortress and figure out what's going on there. They went to Sunblight Fortress. They ended up going through the Underdark, which is not covered in the book, but I did some fun Underdark stuff. They made their way all the way through Sunblight Fortress. Instead of having the BS idea that as soon as you travel all the way to this place, and then you see the flyaway, and then you got to travel all the way back to town, which I think is lame. I was like, I said Zardarok is going to launch it while they're in the Citadel. So I want to pull like the Ozymandias thing from The Watchmen, where like they show up and he's like, "Yep," and they're like, "Well, we're going to stop you." I was like, "Nope, I sent it off an hour ago." Right? Like while you were busy fighting a bunch of my jackasses here, I've already sent it, and you can't stop it. It's on the way, and it's faster than you are. So they did that. They ended up having a lot of fun in Sunblight Fortress with sort of interpersonal drama between Grandolpha and Dirth Sunblight and Zardarok Sunblight. They ended up setting up an arranged marriage between Dirth Sunblight, Zardarok's son, and Grandolpha, which involved Dirth writing out a note that said, "Do you like me?" with 2 checkboxes, yes and no, and said, "Could you hand this Grandolpha for me?" And that was a lot of fun. And then they fought Zardarok, and that was a hard fight, but they persevered. And then it was like, okay, we got to get out of here. And so I lucked out that my wife's player.
Your wife's player or
said,
your wife's character?
We need to. Yeah. My wife's character, sorry. My wife's character said, we need to warn. We know it's launched. Like they before they had reached Zardarok, they said, we know he's already launched the thing. Let's send maybe our ghost Janth. They have the ghost of Janth Alwar. Maybe our ghost can like tap into some ghost network and warn them. And I was like, this is awesome, because in my game, Janth Alwar is a member of the Arcane Brotherhood. Who's he going to go to?
Right.
He's going to go to Velen, which meant Velen shows up and said, "Hey, Janth sent me." Right? And I was like, oh, thank you for giving. Like, I had no other good way for them to get back to 10 Towns. But she did that, and it worked, and it was this perfect tie-in for them to get on the sleds and then go racing across the side. I, of course, threw out all of the BS about how long it takes compared to the amount of time it takes a dragon, because the whole thing's arbitrary anyway. Like, you have this big dumb triggered event that says the dragon will sit there on top of the tower until the characters decide to go to Sunblight. So already you've totally thrown the timeline idea out, right? There's not some big calendar that the dragon is going to attack on a certain day. It's like, no, it triggers when the characters get here. So if you're already going to arbitrarily have the dragon launch, having how fast it flies compared to how fast your sled stuff is, no, it is as fast as the story needs to be, and the dragon will get it as far as the dragon should get. And I think in both my games, it destroyed Dugan's Hole. It half destroyed Goodmead. And half destroyed East Haven, and then in one game it made it all the way to Caer Dineval, because I had character stuff I wanted to do in Caer Dineval. So like I just had the dragon get as far, but then the dragon turned out to kind of suck because it's a giant legendary creature that isn't actually legendary. So what do? Banish it. Boom, it's gone. Right? No, right? So that's lame as hell. So I made it legendary.
You can't perma-banish it, can you?
Once again,
it's not from another plane.
I think so. No, it's not from another plane, but have you ever played with people who know how to use Banish? Because what they do is they set up, hey, let's put grease on the floor, let's polymorph our fighter into a mammoth, let's put a speed potion on the mammoth, let's cast Moonbeam on the spot, and it's already actions. And nothing ever survives coming back to Banish. So no Chardalon
because it's a solo creature and it doesn't have other things around. Yeah.
Right. But it's not a solo creature, right? It's a big, dumb single creature. So much like everything else in this adventure, I rewrote it. And, did I make it legendary? So it gets legendary claw attacks, it's legendary resistance. And I've now run that Chardalon dragon twice. And that worked pretty well both times. Like, it was really hard. It nearly killed the characters in my Sunday game. And it was a good threat for the characters in my Wednesday game. And both groups were level 7 when they faced it. So they both felt like it was a suitable threat. I still feel like it looks like it's the size of a house. How is it only 140 hit points, right? But whatever. So
be level 7 when you face it.
What's that?
You're not supposed to be level 7 when you face it, right?
Well,
chapters 3 and 4, you're supposed to be like 4th level, right?
Yeah. Oh god, don't even get me started with like the. I think we argued about this. Like, here's the flow chart.
I'm just saying.
None of my groups actually follow that flow chart.
I'm just saying. I mean, my group didn't either, right? But I'm just saying, like, so when people are writing a published adventure, they're giving guidelines for the level that they expect the party to be when they're encountering these things. So of course you had to beef it up for characters that were almost two times.
What you could do for fourth level characters? Don't have a Chardalon dragon that's the size of a house.
Well, the point of the dragon isn't for them to fight and defeat it, though. The point of the dragon is to create a situation where it can destroy 10 towns. Because remember how it's written, it's supposed to leave when they do 30 points of damage on it. I mean, it's
that didn't happen.
So that's what's supposed to allow it to then go destroy other towns, and then they're chasing it, right? So it's meant to be this huge, like, big deal chase scene with fighting, and I mean, it was cool in my game. They had a lot of fun.
It ended up being cool in mine. I had to rewrite it.
Right, but I'm just saying, I did it basically as written, and it was still cool. So,
I can see there's a certain
anyway, so I got
appeal to like fighting it on the run, and I can picture that movie scene.
Yeah, right. I guess my problem is look at the art, right? That art and the stat block do not match up, right? That's my problem, right? So anyway, now I've run the Chardalon Dragon both. Now I've got experience having actually run the Chardalon Dragon both times for two different groups, and my Wednesday group. So my Wednesday group is now on the way to Grimskull. They actually just arrived at the Dark Duchess. They fought. I put 2 ice trolls there instead of 1 because they're pretty powerful. So I threw a couple of ice trolls. They dealt with the ice trolls. They went to the kobolds that are locked up in the hold, and they're like, "Hey, we can rescue you." And the kobolds are like, "Are you crazy? Like, maybe if we're nice, we'll rescue you." And they're like, "What are you talking about?" And then Avantaris shows up and lands on the thing, and they're like, "Oh my god!" They're like, "Is that an ancient white dragon?" I'm like, "Yes, it is." And like, "Oh, right." And you're not going to just gimp this guy like you did the Chardalon dragon. Like, this is really an adult dragon. So that's the start for my next game. The cool bit is I've already run all of the Island of Solstice, which I didn't know was called the Island of Solstice until after I'd finished running it. But now I remember. And so now the new group can get the proper name. And I, again, if you look at the map, and Sam, you might have more thoughts about this, but I thought that the map of Solstice was very uninspired. Like, hey, here's 36 shipwrecks that are all in a big circle. Yeah, but we don't want to do that. We're just going to the Citadel. We're going to walk up that road, go to the Citadel, get the thing to get the hell out. So there's hardly any like interesting things to do on the island itself. So I developed a pretty robust point crawl for the island itself with frost giant tombs and weird effigies to other gods. And a lot of like, one of the things I wanted to do about Solstice was say this whole island is a test for frost druids, right? This whole place is like frost druids come here. It's their mecca, right? They come here to become one. And the island is going to beat the hell out of you to make sure that you are stripped of everything. You're either going to die, and most of them do, or you're going to be a true devout of Auril by the time you're done with this place. So like one of the things that I have, which is really cool, is like there's a hot bath there. There's a section of rock where there's what do they call it? Not geysers, but like like hot pools, right? Hot springs. So there's these hot springs, and like the way it's kind of put there is like, well, before you become a true devotee of Auril, this is your last chance to like really feel warmth, right? And if you go in there, it charms you, and you stay in there and boil to death, right? Mm-hmm. And I was like, that's such like a fun, like, and they discover it because they go there and there's all these discarded clothes, and then you look at the bottom of the pool and it's all bones, right? And it's like, if you succumb to the warmth here, you are not a devotee of Auril. So I put a lot of like fun little events like that on the way that is in a point crawl, so they make choices about where they want to go.
I saw on Twitter recently like a template for point crawls? Yeah.
Yeah, so I was trying to do like the world's simplest point crawl. Like, what does a point crawl look like when you try to distill it down to its smallest pieces, right? I mean, so to anybody that doesn't know what point crawl is a way of handling overland travel where you have a bunch of different locations and a bunch of in-world paths that connect those locations. And it basically gives characters multiple choices about where they can go to visit. They know where they're going. They can find... It's essentially like building overland travel like it's a dungeon. Only instead of rooms and hallways, you have
locations. It's what WotC should be doing with their flowcharts instead of straight lines.
You think? How about just give us a page back anyway?
Yeah.
So
right. So Mike, to answer your question, I kind of did a similar thing, but there's stuff on that island. It's just that they repeat it, right? So like there's the place where there's like the frozen statues, and then there's like basically the sheet wall of ice, and there's stuff in the middle of it, and then there's the
you can avoid all of it,
and then there's Nass Lantomir, right? And then and so like what I did was I didn't make like 20 million shipwrecks around. I actually did more of like a point crawl, like what you're talking about. Yeah. And but what happened was, remember I said that I had my party all had like these weird dreams, like these prophetic dreams. When they got to the island of Solstice, everything that they encountered had some kind of piece of that dream in it, right? So if they chose to go to the place where there were all those statues, one of them saw those statues in their dream, except something's different about them, right? If they went to the place with the wall, they saw the wall in their dream, but it's a little bit different. If they found Nass Lantomir, which they didn't, but if they had, that was actually part of, it's a connection. So I did a similar thing, but I made it connected back to what they had learned, 3 days previous.
Right. And it's like, so they have 2 locations. They've labeled, I think, 5 locations, even though it's labeled all over the map, right? And 2 of them, 5 and 6, are like the druidic standing stones and then the icy statues, and neither of them are on the way to Grimskull. Mm-hmm. So you could completely miss them if you actually just walk up the path. So my thought was like, hey, it's okay to miss them, but there should be different paths that you could take and interesting ways to do it, and meaningful choices about how the characters actually go from the docks to Grimskull that show off this island.
Right.
So anyway, the cool bit is I've already run that for my Sunday group, and that worked really well. So I'm going to run it for my Wednesday group, and I hope it will work as well. The other thing, so most of everything else is the same, but I did keep the trials. I did keep the tests in, but I'm not running them at all like they are in the book. And instead I came up with something that I did with my Sunday game. It worked really, really well, which was very similar to Jeff, to what you did in Yethrin. Well before this happened, I emailed each player and said, like, what do you think is a really hard choice that your character is worried about facing? Either something they have faced or something they will face. Like, what are the worries that you've got? And in some cases, I talked to them on the phone. In other cases, like, they emailed me some stuff. In other cases, I didn't get anything back, but I already knew enough of their backstory that I had the hooks. And my thought was, I basically wanted to take 3 components and improvise the test on the spot. And the 3 components there's 4 kinds of tests. There's like perseverance, cruelty, isolation, and something else. I don't remember what they are. But there's like 4 words that make each test, right? And then I had these backgrounds for each of the characters on what was going on. And then the overall goal is, Auril is trying to determine if you are truly devout to Auril, which means you have to give yourself up. You have to be willing to give up everything. And so if you look at the characters, you can say, like, what would this character be forced to give up that would make them a devout of Auril, right? And then they will be thrown into that situation. And then I twist the situation slightly to fit the theme of whatever that word was: isolation, preservation, cruelty, or whatever. And boy, the stuff that my Sunday group had to do was brutal. Like, one of them has been like spending all of his time trying to protect his parents from the Xanathar. Him and his parents fled to Icewind Dale to get away from Waterdeep to avoid the Xanathar. And Xanatharian assassins were after them, and they actually turned the tables and killed the assassins. But then his test was, he's in the Xanathar's lair, and the Xanathar says, I can help you be what you truly are, and points to the Codicil of the White. But in order to do that, you have to tell me which one of your parents I have to kill. Right? And he's like, Mom. It was so hard. And it changed, So here's the funny thing. No mechanics at all, right? There's no penalty. There's no skill check. They just had to make these choices. And the interesting bit was their character have permanently changed based on the choices they made, even though the Xanathar didn't really kill his mom. So, like, he's going to see his parents again. And I'm like, what's that going to be like? And he's like, I don't know. Right? And like, so, one of the characters just figured out that her half-brother, who's one of the other characters, brought her back into the clan of Goliaths, and now she has a real family. Her other family's this completely poisonous, toxic group, and she got away from them and then her choice was, you have to let your own family, your new family, freeze to death in order to embrace the
I don't know, too on the nose or predictable that you like asked them for this information one week and then used it that next session?
No, it wasn't this. Okay. It was weeks earlier, right? I did it weeks earlier, and they didn't know what the situation was. The other tricky bit is only 4 of them had to do the tests, and like one of the characters wasn't even there. So even though I had sort of prepped, here are the different scenes that they might hit. Mm-hmm. I wasn't sure which one of the characters was going to pick which test, and I had to kind of shell game it to make it look like I knew which one of them was going to pick which test, and the theme of it fit. And really, I'm just improvising it, right? Really, it was sort of like the like drawing the cards in Ravenloft, right? I'm gonna change the scene based on who picked what thing. So I'm going to do the same thing again for my Wednesday group hasn't gotten there yet, but when they do, I still have all of these interesting bits of backstory. I've asked them already. Now I've asked them months ahead, right? And I'll have, part of my prep will be what are the tests going to be for them. But this idea of just really using the test as a way to just, if they hand you a knife, right, to really stick those knives in and basically say like oral is testing you to determine if you're devout, right? That's what, and they know like we have to say yes, right? Like we actually aren't devout to oral, but this is what the test is. And if we're going to get that door open and get the codicil, we're going to do it. Now Sam is going to yell at me at this, so prepare yourself. But in my version, I also had one of the forms of oral guarding the codicil. I had the crystal form. And it turns out that having the form that requires flight and has nothing but ranged attack stuck in a small room with a bunch of melee characters is a really bad way to run oral. I would argue anyway that, much like the rest of the adventure, I've had to rewrite that too, because even if you run that one correctly, it's boring as hell. It's so like I disadvantage all the time. It's a terrible design.
I'm not gonna complain. So I'm really hard on my PCs, right? So they're not gonna have a way to get out of their exhaustion, and they're gonna have disadvantage. They're gonna have all these things. But yeah, the map actually for Oral's house for Grimskull is really boring, considering what they could do with it, right? So. Yeah,
I mean that's
why I'm just going to let them sneak and leave,
it's
right?
So, there's so many like, hey, it's really cool that both maps look like giant snowflakes. Guess what? Guess who's never going to find that out? The people that are standing on it, right? So, yeah. Anyway, so it did give me a chance to try out one of the aspects of oral and see how it played out and realize, okay, there's things I have to do for this one. But so the good thing is I'm already well prepped for my run of Grimskull. I did it. I spent a fair bit of work getting it ready for my Sunday group. It worked well, so now I can kind of do that same thing for my Wednesday group. But I really liked it. It was an epiphany to me to turn the tests into ways to really just dive both my hands into the backstories of the characters and really drudge up interesting stuff.
Yeah,
just like you were doing all that, right. What was it? The Invisible Stalkers, right?
Killer.
Not Invisible Stalkers. What was it? Phantasmal Killers. Yeah, same thing, right? And I really like that solution better. Like I think, that kind of just making it a purely backstory thing. It had a lot of impact, completely changed the characters. They've known things. In fact, one of them actually was able to inject something into Oral through the vision that she had, and it's going to last. Right? She's like players, a chosen of an Elder Evil. She mentioned certain.
My players have loved
Elder
that
Evil
kind of stuff so much, and we've been doing it since Waterdeep.
Yeah.
But and I don't do it all the time because like even this time, because the whole secret thing to do the right to get through the force field in Yithrin. A lot of them were struggling because it's like, I don't know, at this point we've been playing together for 2 years plus. Like, I think we've revealed all of our secrets. Like, we're set a few sessions away from finishing the campaign. Right. Like, what more should we reveal? Right. And yet there were things to reveal.
Yeah. So anyway, at that point, then I'm heading straight into Caves of Hunger and Yithrin, closing in on the end of the campaign. I will say that like my struggling with the adventure has lessened since leaving chapter 1. Good. Chapter 1 was the most problematic of the chapters that I had, and then I kind of ripped through 2. I ripped through 3 and 4 because in one case we're not even doing Sunblight Citadel, right? Like they just skipped it completely. The dragon showed up and they had to fight it. And they killed Zardarok was riding on the dragon, so they killed Zardarok there. which is fine because it's like, I've run it.
Right.
They don't really care. I'm ready to move on to other things. The whole thing with Grandolpha and the drama of the Duergar drama.
One of the things that happened because of the way I ran the adventure, or ran Ythryn, is that because I didn't do the Caves of Hunger, I kind of thought about it as, their way into the city or whatever. Then I decided, no, the dragon just bored a giant hole straight there. We'll just skip all that stuff, right? There's side passages if they want to explore it, they didn't. But then they get into the city, and in the I think lovely named Bazaar of the Bazaar, because that's an old Dragon magazine article that I used to love. There is a headless iron golem like just smashing its way around through there, right?
Yeah, right.
Right. Well, the head is in the caves of the Caverns of Hunger, and so now one of my players is like, everywhere he goes, like, okay, but is there an iron head there? Is there an iron head here? I look around. Can I find the iron head? Like, he's looking for it everywhere because he's like, it's got to be here somewhere. Then we can fix that golem.
And deep in the back of the head, they're like, we're going to have an iron golem on our side.
Well, right.
You're like, no, you're not.
and yet now, but then there's still a part of me that's like, well, now I kind of feel like I got to stick that head in there somewhere because they're.
Yeah,
but I don't know where it would be fun to put it, so we'll see. Maybe
you can figure that out. Whenever it seems right.
You know what?
Keep it in your back pocket.
They visited every location in the city now, and they're exploring the Spire, except they never went to the Chain Lightning Arena. So that's the trophy. If you win Chain Lightning, you get the head.
The head is sitting there just getting hit by lightning. Ow!
It's the only audience member in the stands watching. So, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm enjoying the game. I have to do too much work. I feel like I have to rewrite so much, but my players are having a good time. I'm having a good time. In the end, it's all solid, and I'm looking forward. I got lots of really interesting ideas for Ythryn that I want to do.
I've been very pleased with Ythryn, having not had a lot of interest in Rime generally, and then deciding at the last minute to throw Ythryn in as a location. It's been actually a lot of fun, and we've been enjoying it a lot.
Right.
So all right, well, I think that's the end of your time. 25 minutes in. I think. Yeah. Oh no! I think all of us.
Start, man.
If you include my questions about random encounters with Sam's time, I think we each went about half an hour each. So. So that is where we're gonna wrap up. This is the end of Behind the DM Screen for today. If you want to find me on the internets, I am available on Twitter at SQUACH, and the show is at The Tome Show. Mike, where can people find you?
Flyflourish.com. Go to that website.
He's bitter about Twitter, so don't find him on Twitter.
Can I pimp my Kickstarter?
Pimp your Kickstarter.
Okay, so I'm also running a Kickstarter for the Lazy DM's Companion. It is available on Kickstarter now. Somewhere there's a link. You can Google it. Lazy DM Companion.
I keep forgetting that Kickstarter's still going on because I backed it on day one and then put it out of my mind. Yeah.
It is still going on. Yeah, it's still going on. It's going very well. It's the first chance to get official full print run, full offset printing of Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, the Lazy DM's workbook in spiral bound format, and softcover of the Lazy DM Companion, the new book that's coming out. So I'm really excited for it. And been a busy couple of weeks.
Sam, where can people find you?
You can find me at rpgmusings.com or on Twitter at DM Samuel. I am not mad at Twitter like Mike is. Right. I just don't spend very much time over there because
you and I are in the same boat.
Life, whatever.
All right, then that is the end of this episode. So good times. I don't know how I end. Say goodbye, guys. I know that's the last thing I say.
Goodbye.
Bye, guys.
The end of the episode. All right. Say goodbye to the stream. Good times.
Bye, stream. Thank you guys for hanging out. Hope you had fun.
And then I should figure out where OBS is.